A record-setting primary in Michigan sets up close races this November. The mood of the state, the issues that matter most, a pink wave, and much more. Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson join me, and My Week is coming up.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Hi there and welcome to My Week. I'm Christy McDonald. If you got an I voted sticker on Tuesday, then you were part of the biggest primary turnout in 40 years in Michigan. There's a lot to talk about in the aftermath, including problems at the polls. The Schuette Whitmer contest is not a surprise, but what both camps will concentrate on next and how their pick for lieutenant governor could steer the race is a big question. We'll debate that coming up. Plus, Lena Epstein faces Haley Stevens for the 11th congressional seat, the co-chair of Trump's presidential campaign in Michigan versus a former Obama administration official. Why people are calling this traditionally GOP seat a toss-up. Also coming up, former state rep Rashida Tlaib becomes the first Muslim-American woman heading to Congress, what she'll face representing the 13th. And Trump-endorsed John James takes on incumbent Debbie Stabenow for Michigan's Senate seat. Will we see these two debate? And checking out the number of women candidates who won the races and why people are calling 2018 the year of the woman. I think every year should be the year of the woman. A lot to get to and always a good show post-primary with our My Week contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of WDET Radio. You know, I should have brought like a bowl of popcorn. A thing of bourbon.
Always do that.
I had that
exactly.
Tuesday night.
Put our feet up and talk about this. There was a lot coming out of the primary, and the one thing that it was amazing to see was the turnout. Over 2 million votes cast. Yeah. I was at my polling place, which had a pretty good turnout, and I actually saw an 18-year-old neighbor of mine vote for the first time, which I thought was pretty cool in a primary election.
Cool.
All right, so the biggest takeaway from Tuesday night for you on a global sense, Nolan?
Well, clearly it's the fact that people are engaged, and I think they're engaged on both sides of the aisle. You saw a strong Democratic turnout, but you also saw a strong Republican turnout that pretty much matched their makeup of the Michigan population.
Right.
People are fired up and are going to vote this time.
What do you think in terms of, we saw the numbers, we saw Democrats coming out maybe a little bit more than the Republicans
did. A little bit more
did.
than Republicans, but
there are more of them in the state.
But there are more registered Democrats in the state. You know, I've said this before, that it's weird to sort of contemplate that one of the effects that Donald Trump has had on the political culture and process in this country is more engagement. People are more concerned, I think, about the direction of government in the country than they were before. And I think a lot of that is attributable to his surprising win and the things that he's said and done since then that have sort of incited not just the left, but also the right. I mean, think of how energized people who support the president are now. That doesn't mean he's overall a good person or is having a good effect on our country.
Yeah, but he's making people pay attention and think that they're very invested in what decisions are being made. It's interesting, Nolan, when you look at all the national papers as well, when they looked at Michigan on Tuesday night, you saw a variety of storylines coming out.
Oh, I mean, there's no question about it. The number of women who were elected was simply amazing. The number of women who were actually on the ballot. You have a congressional district where 2 women will be facing off. I think that's for the first time I can ever remember. And two viable candidates. That 11th district's a toss-up. I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but you've got a Democratic ticket that is going to be, at this point, all female. Yeah. And I don't know that we've seen that in a long time.
They're also talking about, in terms when they call it the year of the woman or the pink wave, they're looking at also the number of female candidates for governor across the nation is the largest that we've had. There's 11 candidates right now, including here in Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is not just the number of candidates, it's the number of wins that's also making this the year of the woman. There are not a lot of races where you see women losing to men. And if you think about our primary results, it wasn't just Gretchen Whitmer, but someone like Haley Stevens, who beat Tim Greimel.
That was surprising.
A very well-known
established
name,
Democrat.
right? Rashida Tlaib, bettering Bill Wild and Ian Conyers and Coleman Young in the 13th. It's the winning that I think is cementing that moniker for this year.
I think what's going to be very interesting, though, as we now go through these next couple of months, is how these female candidates are going to be judged. Because we know, and you look at ad literature, when you look at people, they say, well, is she coming across too hard? Is she coming across too nice? That is sometimes the problem when people judge female candidates, and whether it's conscious or it's an unconscious judgment on people's part. Women who are running for office get judged in a bit of a different way than male candidates do.
Yeah, they do, and that's part of the double standards that make up the fabric of this country, and it's not the only double standard, obviously. I think what's different this time and this year is partially the reaction to the things that we've seen happen in the past year that have to do with women's issues and gender issues. That has women motivated, and let's be honest, women are the majority of the population. If they decided to vote en masse and to vote their gender interest above everything else, you would see a majority of politicians be women. I'm not sure there's anything wrong with that. I think you can pay attention to something like that and also be caring about the issues.
Well, exactly. And I'm not going to say that every woman's like, well, I'm just going to vote for her just because she's a woman. I think that people are very savvy enough to know that they want to vote for someone who's going to advance their interests, whether it's a man or a woman, and what they stand for. Nolan?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think as they campaign, I mean, there's another side of that, too. Women can't hide behind their own skirts. They've got to understand the political world. You become a political candidate, you look at what we went through in the governor's race, it gets dirty and it gets vicious, whether you're a man or a woman. I have never seen a primary campaign.
On the Republican side, yeah.
On the Republican side mostly. Yeah. I mean, it was the nastiest thing I've ever seen, and they were all men.
I will have to say, though, that any of the women who are running right now are not going to be hiding behind their own skirts, because to even get to this point, to say, I'm going to run, I'm going to raise the money, I'm going to get out there and put yourself out there, that's already such a hard place to get. But every criticism of everything they do or everything they stand for isn't about their sex. And I think we've got to, as we get into this campaign where you've got almost an equal number of men and women running, they've got to be judged on their positions and their issues. They got to take the heat as well. I mean, you've got to be able to stand up to let's go ahead and take a look at the governor's race. Whitmer v. Schuette was not a huge surprise here, but what they're going to have to do next and what Gretchen Whitmer is going to have to do next. Let's start off with Gretchen Whitmer. She had a better showing in Detroit that I think that people thought that she was going to have. What does she need to do next, Stephen? And then Nolan, I'll get your take on this to advance her campaign.
So, I mean, I think the storyline on that side is somewhat similar but not identical to the storyline in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. You had this very progressive, very charismatic opponent, Abdul al-Sayed, who got, I think, what, 30-some% of the vote.
Right.
That's pretty good. I thought he would get a little closer. But the people who voted for him are not automatic votes for Gretchen Whitmer in the fall. And so she is going to have to make the gesture toward that side of
what would that gesture be, though?
Well, I have suggested since Mackinac that putting Abdul on the ticket, I think, is one way to do that. That just like with any choice, it comes with positives and negatives. I think the positives outweigh the negatives in this case. But that's up to the party really that decides who the LG candidate would be. It would solve her progressive problems, though, instantly.
It would solve her progressive problems, though, but you'd have the person who really wanted the job standing right next to her.
It would create her all sorts of other problems. She's got to do what Rick Snyder did. She's got to build a coalition of of her own party, and I don't think her progressive base, the Democratic Party, is going to go to Bill Schuette. She's got.
Well, they might sit home.
They might not show up.
She's got to get her own party. She's got to get those independents, and she's got to get those Republicans who don't want to vote for Bill Schuette. She's got to, she's got to stay in the middle. She can't add somebody like Abdul, a bomb-throwing socialist, on her ticket. She's got to get someone that people are comfortable with. I think she has to campaign in the style of Rick Snyder, welcoming across the board, painting himself as a moderate, as bipartisan. I mean, because Schuette's going to run with his base, and he's going to run over here. If she can position herself sort of straddling the middle, I think that.
I mean, this is somebody who's already in the middle, right?
I think if she can position herself in the middle, adding Abdul would not do that. If she can make herself palatable to that Snyder coalition, she wins this election.
And does she continue to hammer on infrastructure? Is that still going to be her main ticket that will do well for her?
Well, she got to have a plan. Yeah. I mean, you can't just say fix the damn roads and not have a plan for funding.
They don't have a plan.
And neither of these candidates have a plan for paying for the infrastructure repairs we need here. One-time fix is not going to do it.
Well, what about this bonding issue?
Bonding issue raises you one-time money. Yeah. We need a dedicated stream of money over the course of 20 years to fix this.
But you get that out of the bond issue if you borrowed enough. Right?
You can't borrow $2 billion a year or $4 billion a year.
Not every year, right?
Well, that's what we need to get our roads where they need to be.
Let's talk a little bit about Bill Schuette now and where he is. And we talked about just how contentious the GOP primary was. Wow. And we don't really see Rick Snyder coming out and raising his hand saying, you know, I'm going to back Bill Schuette in this election.
Well, I gave him a chance to do that yesterday. Yeah. I called the governor's office and I said, is he going to the unity dinner? No. Is he going to endorse Bill Schuette? Our statement is the governor will support the next administration. Well, would he prefer that to be Bill Schuette? That's up for the people to decide. Yeah. I don't think he's going to give, he may come out at some point and give him a tepid pat on the back or a little spud.
A polite golf clap?
Those two hate each other.
Yeah, but for Bill Schuette, though, is he kind of like, I don't need it?
Well, I think you could use it if you're Bill Schuette. You can use any help you can get. I think part of the issue here is that the lieutenant governor was the person that Bill Schuette beat in the primary, and also think about how much loyalty do you think Rick Snyder feels to the Republican Party or brand at this point? I mean,
this is all about the Flint prosecutions. Snyder felt like he was put on trial by proxy by
a member of his own party.
A member of his own party. He doesn't need Snyder out there courting borders. He needs Snyder out there putting his arm on the donors. Snyder is a very good fundraiser. And he needs that GOP fundraising establishment behind him, and that's the usefulness.
But at the end of the day, think about Rick Snyder. Do you think he's going to vote for Bill Schuette? I could see him voting for Gretchen Whitmer, or just
not voting. Well, the rumor was that
he might have run as a Democrat.
The rumor was that Snyder might back Whitmer. Now he said yesterday that's inaccurate. Those are inaccurate rumors.
Yeah, well, but I don't think he can afford to do that.
I think there's a lot of time before November.
I can't imagine he casts his
ballot. Let me ask you this: what's the one issue that Bill Schuette is going to run on or needs to run on?
I mean, leadership. I think he needs to show this depth of experience he has. All of these years of doing various jobs and doing them successfully positions him to lead Michigan and also continue the progress Michigan is making. He's got to present this idea that he'll keep us on a steady course and won't make radical changes, because I think that's what people fear.
So think about Bill Schuette is probably the most qualified on paper candidate for governor that we've seen in, I don't know, what, 30, 40 years. Think of all the different jobs he's had. I have been mystified this year at the enthusiasm with which he has grabbed onto the Trump brand, which he doesn't need, and probably didn't need to win this in order to push himself to the right. I think what he's got to do in the next 2 months, the president has still got more than 50% negatives overall in Michigan. He's very popular in the Republican Party, but he's not popular among independents or Democrats. Bill Schuette has got to clean that record up because that's how people are thinking.
Because the base is with him.
Right. That's
the
right.
base
They're going to vote
with
for him anyway.
He doesn't need Trump to rally the base. The base loves
I think
Bill
John
Schuette.
James has the same problem.
Well, he's got a bigger prize running against a $7 million.
Yeah, right.
incumbent.
Great.
All right, and we will get to that. One thing before we leave the governor's race, how many debates should we see? I mean, I know that we are going to be asking for a debate between the two that we could moderate, but you think as many, two?
Two or three would be great.
I wouldn't it hurt to have 5 or 6 debates.
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't.
I don't think they'll ever do that, man.
They won't, but in other states you see that.
You do.
Yeah.
You know,
You do.
and I think you need at least 3 debates over the course of the campaign.
Yeah.
All right,
And
let's
they
go
should
ahead.
start sort of right away.
Soon. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
right after Labor
let's
Day.
start getting the organization going, eh? All right, let's take a look at some of the congressional races. And we did touch a little bit on Rashida Tlaib and the fact that she's going to be the first Muslim woman who's going to be in Congress. That has made headlines around the country for her. And the thing that crossed my mind that I had forgotten about was when Donald Trump came here in 2016 and spoke to the Detroit Economic Club and gave his economic platform. She was one of the women who stood up and interrupted his speech.
I was in the room and I said, hey,
and
that's Rashida.
That's Rashida. And I think it's going to be very interesting to have that kind of dynamic now in Trump's Washington going into Congress. What's your thought on that?
Rashida is one of the strongest individuals I know. She is a very forceful activist and legislator. I think this is a different brand of congressperson than we're used to here in the state of Michigan, and she will surprise us over and over with the way that she does things. But here's the thing that I think always has defined her, and it will probably define her even more in Congress. This is somebody who is really, really close to the people she represents. Constituent service has always been the main focus of her state Senate office, or her state rep office, and the work that she did in between then and now. And so I think this is somebody who will spend more time in Detroit than in Washington and make that sort of count for the people who live in that district. I think that's one of the things that convinced people to vote for her.
Is that slightly detrimental, though, Nolan, that don't you have to be in Washington a little bit more to get into the Washington machine or figure out how it all works?
The last thing you want to do is get into the Washington machine. You don't want to
clean it up.
You don't want to end up like folks go down there and they never come back. You wouldn't know Debbie Stabenow was running for Senate because we haven't seen her in this state, and I don't know how long. You want them to come back. I'm not a big fan of Rashida's. I hope she does well because Michigan needs representation. I'm not sure how well she's going to play with others in terms of the delegation, which gets together, I think, very effectively, or had been, in pushing Michigan issues and Michigan interests, Michigan economic interests. I think it's still a step up probably from what was there.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the 11th, which has been traditionally a Republican-held seat. Dave Trott retiring. Now people are saying that this could be a toss-up race. And you have Lena Epstein and Haley Stevens, a classic, what people across the country are saying, a Trump versus Obama really race here. How would you characterize it, Nolan?
I didn't look at the total vote for the primary, whether Democrats turned out more than that district or Republicans. I know in the Bishop district, Republicans turned out somewhat more than Democrats, which tells me that race is probably not going to be the toss-up people think. This one could be because the demographics of that district have changed over the last decade. I think she's going to get a lot of help. Lena Epstein's going to get a lot of help, a lot of money to try to keep that district Republican, and I think probably a lot of money is going to flood in on the other side. This is going to be a very, very well-funded race. It'll be close.
Yeah.
And again, the district snaking from Livonia all the way to Troy in this one. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think we're going to be able to see?
Aren't all that disconnected. I mean, they're demographically those communities, are
they're
are fairly
contiguous
common.
in the literal sense, but not in any other sense. I mean, again, this is a function of the way that the Republicans tried to maximize their advantage. When they drew the maps after the 2010 census, there's nothing new about that, although I will say that this was the most extreme iteration of that we've seen in Michigan history. But one of the dangers of doing that, of course, is that people move. they move in and out of a district over time, and this is the 8th year
it usually cures itself.
Yeah, it could go Democratic.
Let me ask you this: what do you think are the biggest issues that are going to be at play for the 11th and for these two women facing off against each other?
In that district, I think that this really is about national politics and issues far more than it is about local. The national attention on that race is really going to matter. The national money that flows in is going to matter, and it's one of the seats that Democrats need to pick up if they have any hope of getting a majority in Washington in November. And so that, I think that's going to crowd out any other kind of local issue that might come up.
Let's look at the 8th real quickly. You mentioned, Nolan, you feel that since taking a look at the turnout that Mike Bishop may be safe if you have more Republicans are going to be turning out. But again, they're thinking that this could be a toss-up as well.
It's going to be a tough race because you have folks, Democratic funders like Tom Steyer, going to spend millions on that race and the 11th race. Mike Bishop's got to do better at fundraising than he's been doing. I think the National Party will probably kick in a bunch of bucks. But you remember last time out, it was, Mike Bishop's in trouble. Mike Bishop won by 15.
He won by 17. 17 points last time.
So I don't know. I mean, that district still looks.
The math's too hard for Democrats in that district.
I think so. I think the focus will be on the 8th district, and the issue there, I agree with Steve. The 11th. The economy's great there. And people are not discontented. It's all about Trump.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, let's go ahead and take a look real quickly at the Senate race. We have John James, who was endorsed by Trump last week, now facing off against Debbie Stabenow. Will we see a debate there? Now, that would be an interesting debate to see.
You owe voters that. And, she can't get so comfortable and confident in her seat that she doesn't give the voters of this state a campaign. People deserve a campaign. You need to make your case for re-election, and part of that is to sit down with your opponent and debate.
And discuss the issues. We haven't seen a Senate debate since, I think, Debbie Stabenow debated Spence Abraham, right?
Way back.
Wow.
That's 98. Is that the year that happened? I can't remember.
I don't know.
No, wasn't that 2000?
Might have been 2000.
It was 2000.
Yeah. So it's been a long time, right?
Yeah.
And that's not okay. I think you rob voters of the chance to really compare the two candidates. I'm really interested in John James and his candidacy. I think this is a really interesting personal story, a guy with a lot of integrity, but again, his position on issues is a little strange given the fact that he's an African American and some of the things he supports actually hurt the African American community. But even worse is his alliance with Donald Trump and the enthusiastic alliance with Donald Trump. I don't understand.
You don't think African Americans should be free to be conservative or to support the president?
I didn't say that. What I said was that some of the positions he holds are things that actually hurt the African American community.
But he
I don't
doesn't
understand
see it that way.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with being conservative.
He thinks they would help. My question is whether the Republicans have in John James a very attractive candidate. They say that they have what they say they want. A minority candidate, young candidate, war veteran, war hero,
business owner.
as attractive as you can get.
And he was able to raise over $3 million for the primary.
So will they put their money behind
Oh,
John
I think
James?
they will.
Yeah, we'll see.
Don't you?
Hey, you know what? We only have about 2 minutes left of the show, but I couldn't go without talking a little bit about the new T-shirt that everyone's going to be wearing. Would be Brooks Patterson versus everybody. He came out this week essentially saying, "Hey, Oakland Chamber, I want to meet with you because what they're doing downtown." And Jerry Anderson is the head of DTE and kind of this CEO gathering of CEOs to bring business into the city. That they're really going against. They're really going against Oakland County, and he what did he call them? They're self-appointed saviors. I mean, we've seen a lot of Brooks things. We've heard a lot of Brooks things.
The people we were talking about all live in Oakland County, by the way. He and Mark Hackle were on my radio show, 9:10 a.m. Superstation.
That's a small plug. You just killed 30 seconds of my time, Nolan.
They were on there Tuesday, and that same theme, talking about the cannibalization, that we shouldn't be moving people from one place, leaving a whole one place to fill up
But isn't that what happens in a region no matter what?
Oh, not when a region's growing. And that problem here is we're growing space and in offices and in residences, and we're not growing our total population. And so this means we're moving people around.
So much for regional cooperation,
but it's very hard for people in the city to hear that and not laugh at Brooks Patterson, who mastered the art of attracting people away from the city using the most cynical issues, race, economics, all these other things. This is somebody who symbolizes the cannibalization of the city, now complaining that things have worked the other way. I agree. We all need to figure out a way to grow the region so that no one is in that position. But it's a little bit of irony now to hear Brooks Patterson complaining about it.
But the break between the four regional leaders, I think, is very real. Brooks said on the show, I'm not going to sit down with people who've called me racist, called me names. Hackle said, you know, I'm resentful too. They got a lot of work to do to patch that relationship.
And I think we got to make a list then of things that may not happen because of what this breakdown in relationship is. Well, we'll talk about that on coming episodes of the show. All right, thanks, guys. That's going to do it for My Week. Thanks for joining us. For all of the stories that we're working on with the Detroit Journalism Cooperative and One Detroit, just head to our website at MiWeek.org. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you there. I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next week for My Week. Take care.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.